My name's Claire, I'm 27 years old, and I've learned one thing in life the hard way. People will smile in your face while sharpening the knife behind your back. It all started with my best friend, or at least, the girl I thought was my best friend, Emily. We met in college, lived together for 3 years, and for the longest time, she was like a sister to me. I was the kind of friend who showed up when her car broke down at 2 a.m., who loaned her money when her rent was short, and who sat up with her through every breakup, every crying jag, every mess she made. I didn't mind, that's what friends are for, right? But things changed when she got engaged to Ryan. Suddenly, I wasn't her first call anymore. I was more like a backup, someone she only reached out to when she needed something. At first, I brushed it off. Weddings are stressful, people get distracted. But then came the favor. Emily called me late one night, practically in tears. The venue she wanted, the dreamy vineyard in Napa she'd been obsessing over, was way out of her budget. Ryan wasn't willing to pitch in more, and her parents couldn't cover it. "Claire," she said, her voice trembling, "you're the only person I can count on. If you help me, I'll pay you back every cent. Please. This wedding won't be perfect without that venue." I hesitated. $26,000 was a lot of money. It was nearly my entire savings. But she begged, swore up and down that she'd pay me back, and I caved. I thought I was doing something beautiful for my best friend. But the closer the wedding got, the more I noticed how she kept me at arm's length. I wasn't in the bridal party, my name wasn't on the seating chart, and every time I asked about helping, she brushed me off. Still, I showed up at her big day. And that's when her mother cornered me at the entrance, eyes narrowed like I was some unwanted guest. "You don't belong here," she hissed. I smiled, calm as ever. Funny, since I paid $26,000 for this venue. The words had barely left my mouth when Emily's mom, Patricia, let out this sharp, mocking laugh, like I had just told the world's funniest joke. "Oh, please," she said, tilting her head with that smug little smile of hers. "You really expect us to believe you paid for this place? Honey, this is a 5-star venue. People like you don't just pay for things like this." Her tone dripped with condescension, and it stung more than I wanted to admit. People like me? I wanted to snap back, but instead, I kept my smile steady. Calm. Controlled. That was when I caught the eye of the venue manager, who had been hovering nearby, probably wondering what the commotion was about. "Actually," I said, turning slightly toward him, "would you mind confirming who signed the contract for this venue?" The manager, a tall man in a crisp black suit, looked between us. Patricia crossed her arms, looking confident. "Yes, do tell her, so she stops making a fool of herself." He pulled out a sleek black binder from behind the check-in desk, flipping a few pages before stopping at one. He glanced at me, then at Patricia, and finally spoke. "The contract was signed by a Claire, yes, here it is. Claire M." He looked up, nodding toward me. That would be her. The silence that fell over the room was heavy. I could hear someone's fork clink against a plate in the dining hall behind us. Emily's bridesmaids, who had been giggling and whispering in the corner, froze mid-sentence. And Patricia, oh, her face was priceless. The color drained right out of it. Everyone's eyes turned to me. For the first time in months, I didn't feel invisible. Patricia opened her mouth, closed it, then finally managed, "Well, I'm sure there's some sort of mistake." But there wasn't. And in that moment, everyone knew it. I stood a little taller, letting the silence do its work. This wedding wasn't going to end the way they planned. The moment the manager closed the binder, Emily appeared from the ballroom, her white dress catching the light like something out of a magazine. Her face was glowing from all the attention, but when she saw the tension in the air, her smile faltered. "What's going on out here?" she asked, glancing between her mom, the manager, and me. Patricia jumped in immediately, desperate to regain control. "Nothing, sweetheart. Just a little misunderstanding. This girl seems to think she has some kind of claim on your wedding." Emily's brows knit together, and she turned to me. Claire, what is she talking about? I took a step forward, steady and calm. She's talking about the $26,000 I gave you to book this venue. Your mom told me I didn't belong here. But according to the manager, I'm the only reason this wedding is even happening. The room seemed to shrink around us. A few guests had wandered closer, pretending to sip their champagne but clearly eavesdropping. Emily's cheeks went pale, her lips parting like she was about to deny it, but then she froze. She knew she couldn't. Claire, she said softly, her voice trembling just enough for me to catch it. This isn't the time or place. No, Emily, I interrupted, my voice sharp but controlled. This is exactly the time. Because for months, you've treated me like I'm nothing. Like I don't exist. You begged me for money, swore you'd pay me back, and then didn't even make me a bridesmaid. You cut me out, and I stayed quiet. But now your mother says I don't belong here? I think everyone deserves to know the truth. Gasps rippled through the small crowd forming. Emily's bridesmaids exchanged glances, whispering to each other. Ryan, the groom, had finally appeared at her side, confusion plastered across his face. What's she talking about, Em? He asked. Emily's mouth opened, but no sound came out. For the first time all day, the perfect bride didn't look so perfect anymore. Ryan's eyes narrowed as he looked from me to Emily. He wasn't the kind of guy who raised his voice easily, but the tension in his jaw said everything. Emily, what is she talking about? Did Claire really pay for this venue? Emily's hand shot out, gripping his arm like she could hold him in place with sheer force. Babe, please, don't listen to this right now. It's just, Claire's being dramatic. She wanted to help, but I told her it wasn't necessary, and she insisted. It wasn't like that. The bridesmaids shifted uncomfortably, and even Patricia looked nervous at her daughter's flimsy excuse. I crossed my arms. So now it's my fault? You called me crying at midnight, Emily. You begged me. I drained my savings for you. And now you want to rewrite the story because you're embarrassed in front of your perfect wedding guests? A murmur rippled through the crowd that had gathered. People were whispering, eyes darting between Emily and me like they were watching the opening act of a car crash. Ryan's face hardened. Is it true? He asked again, slower this time, his tone sharper. Emily tried to laugh, but it came out shaky. Ryan, you know how Claire is. She exaggerates everything. I didn't make her do anything. She just wanted to feel important. I cut her off. Do you want to see the contract? Because your venue manager already confirmed whose name is on it. That landed like a thunderclap. Ryan's head whipped toward the manager, who gave a solemn nod. It's true. The payment and the signature both belong to her. Ryan's face drained of color. He stepped back from Emily slightly, like he needed the distance to process what he'd just heard. The perfect image of the smiling bride and groom had cracked, and everyone could see it. And I wasn't done yet. It was almost funny how fast the room shifted. A moment ago, Emily was the star of the day, the glowing bride everyone adored. Now? The whispers had turned sharp, pointed, like tiny knives slicing through her carefully crafted image. I can't believe she'd do that to her best friend, I heard someone mutter. Did she really not even make her a bridesmaid? Another voice added, louder than they probably meant to. The bridesmaids, 5 of them, all in matching blush pink dresses, looked like they wanted to disappear into the walls. One of them, Sarah, glanced at me with something that almost looked like guilt, before looking quickly away. Patricia, however, wasn't going to surrender without a fight. She stepped forward, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. All right, enough of this. This is Emily's special day, not some circus show. Claire, whatever contribution you claim you made, it was clearly a gift. And it is deeply inappropriate to bring it up now, of all times. Her voice had the kind of authority that came from years of bulldozing people into silence. But not me. Not anymore. It wasn't a gift, I said firmly. It was a loan. Emily swore she'd pay me back every cent. And yet, here we are, her mother telling me I don't belong, her pretending I don't exist, and not a single payment in sight. More gasps. Patricia's cheeks flushed red, but before she could speak again, Ryan raised his hand, silencing the room. Mom, stop, he said flatly. The word mom hit Patricia like a slap. She froze, shocked that he wasn't on their side. Ryan's gaze was locked on Emily. His voice was low, controlled, but every word was edged with anger. You lied to me, Em. You told me your parents covered this place. Is that what all the other lies were for too? To keep me in the dark? Emily's lips trembled, but no words came. The guests weren't whispering anymore. They were staring, wide-eyed, waiting to see what would happen next. And I could feel it, the tide was turning in my favor. Emily's perfect bridal composure was gone. Her hands trembled as she clutched her bouquet tighter, the white roses shaking like they could shield her from the truth pressing in on all sides. Ryan, please, she whispered, her voice breaking. It wasn't a lie. Not really. I didn't want you to think I couldn't handle it. You work so hard, and my parents have done so much already, and I didn't want to ask you for more money. I thought Claire wouldn't mind, she's always been there for me. The way she said it, like draining my life savings was some quirk of mine, like it was just another favor I lived to give her, made my blood boil. You thought I wouldn't mind? I snapped, stepping forward. My voice was louder now, sharper, and it cut through the hum of whispers around us. Emily, you didn't think at all. You used me. And the second you got what you wanted, you pushed me out. Didn't even give me a seat at the table, literally. Emily's eyes darted toward the crowd of guests, her face tightening as she realized how many people were watching. Some had their phones out now, though they tried to look discreet about it. I was going to pay you back, she cried, her voice climbing. I just needed time. Weddings are expensive, you know that. And you're single, Claire. You don't have responsibilities, you don't have kids, you don't even have a boyfriend. I thought you could handle it better than anyone else. That was it. A ripple of disapproval spread through the crowd. A few guests actually shook their heads, one woman muttering, "That's disgusting," under her breath. Ryan's jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. So you used her because she's single? That's your excuse? His voice was deadly quiet, the kind that hit harder than a shout. Emily looked around wildly, searching for an ally. But even her bridesmaids avoided her eyes. Patricia opened her mouth to jump in, but the weight of the room, the judgment, the disgust, kept her silent. For the first time, Emily realized she was completely alone. The silence between Emily and Ryan stretched so long it felt like the whole room was holding its breath. Ryan stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time, not the woman in a white dress, not the glowing bride he thought he knew, but someone else entirely. Finally, he spoke. Emily, how many other things have you hidden from me? His words cut deeper than anything I'd said. Emily's lips parted, but no sound came out. Her bouquet slipped from her hands and hit the floor with a dull thud, petals scattering across the marble. Ryan, don't say that, she whispered, her voice barely audible. You're making it sound like I'm a liar. I just wanted today to be perfect. Ryan shook his head slowly. Perfect? You built today on someone else's money. On lies. How is that perfect? He glanced at me, and for the first time since all this started, there was gratitude in his eyes. Gratitude, and shame. The guests were restless now, whispering openly. If I were him, I'd walk out right now, one man muttered. Another woman clutched her pearls like she was watching a soap opera unfold live. Patricia finally tried to intervene again, her voice sharp. Ryan, don't be ridiculous. All brides have a little help. This doesn't change anything. It changes everything, Ryan snapped, his voice booming through the hall. Even Patricia flinched. She let her best friend bankroll this day and then tried to erase her from it. That's not just a little help. That's character. That's who she is. Emily's face crumpled, tears streaking down her makeup. She reached for Ryan's hand, but he stepped back, shaking his head. The rejection was brutal, and everyone saw it. The weight of the moment was crushing her, but for me? For the first time in years, I felt lighter. Because Emily wasn't the only one who was about to lose everything. Ryan's voice dropped lower, but that only made it more dangerous. Emily, look at me. She froze, mascara streaking down her cheeks. Slowly, she lifted her eyes, meeting his stare. Did you ever actually plan to pay Claire back? He asked. Each word was deliberate, leaving no room for excuses. The guests went quiet again. The clinking of glasses, the soft music from the reception hall, it all seemed to fade until there was nothing but Ryan's question hanging in the air. Emily's mouth opened, closed, then opened again. She looked like a child caught with her hand in the cookie jar, except the cookie jar was $26,000 of my hard-earned money. I was going to, she stammered. After the honeymoon. After things settled down. I didn't think she'd need it back so soon. I let out a bitter laugh. 3 months, Emily. You've had 3 months. Not a single payment. Not even an apology. Don't stand there and act like this was temporary. You never intended to pay me back. The sting of my words landed. The crowd shifted, eyes narrowing at her, their judgment sharpening. Even her bridesmaids, who had been loyal shadows all day, looked disgusted. Ryan's face went rigid. He stepped closer, his voice icy. So you lied to me, used her, and tried to humiliate her at your own wedding. That's who you are. Emily reached out for him again, desperation bleeding into every movement. Ryan, please. I love you. I did this for us. You don't understand. No, he cut her off, pulling his arm back. You don't understand. If you'll betray your best friend this way, what the hell makes me think you wouldn't betray me too? A collective gasp swept through the guests. The fairy tale image of the happy couple had shattered completely, and there was no gluing it back together. And standing there, I realized, this was only the beginning of Emily's downfall. Ryan stood perfectly still, his chest rising and falling like he was holding back an explosion. Emily was trembling, reaching for him again, but he wouldn't move. The silence stretched so long that even the servers carrying trays of champagne froze in the doorway, unsure if they should keep walking. Finally, Ryan exhaled, and his words came out cold and steady. I can't do this, Emily. The words hit the room like a thunderclap. Guests gasped, hands shot to mouths, and even Patricia staggered as if someone had physically shoved her. Emily's knees buckled, and she grabbed the edge of a chair to steady herself. What do you mean you can't? Ryan, this is just a fight. Couples fight all the time. We can fix this. Ryan shook his head, his voice firmer now. No, this isn't a fight. This is who you are. And I'm not marrying someone who builds her life on lies, who uses people, who treats loyalty like it's disposable. Her bouquet still lay in pieces on the floor, white petals scattered like the remains of the dream she had tried to build. She dropped to her knees beside it, sobbing, her perfect dress crumpling. Please, Ryan, please don't do this. We can talk about it, I'll pay her back, I'll fix it, I swear. Ryan looked at me then, his eyes meeting mine. Claire, I'm sorry. You didn't deserve any of this. For a second, I didn't know what to say. The vindication was sharp, almost overwhelming. All those nights of regret, of wondering if I had been foolish to give Emily my savings, suddenly, I felt like the universe was balancing the scales. Patricia tried one last time, her voice shaking with fury. Ryan, you can't humiliate my daughter like this in front of everyone. But Ryan turned to her, his tone final. Your daughter did that all on her own. And just like that, the wedding was over. The moment Ryan's words landed, the entire atmosphere in the venue changed. It was like someone had popped a balloon, releasing all the fake glamour and polished smiles that had held the day together. Guests began shifting uncomfortably, whispering in hushed tones. Some slipped out discreetly, heels clicking against the floor, while others stayed rooted in place, too fascinated to miss the drama unfolding. The buzz of conversation grew louder by the second, the entire wedding unraveling in real time. Emily was still on her knees, sobbing into the wreckage of her bouquet, her mascara staining her dress. Her bridesmaids hovered nearby, unsure whether to comfort her or keep their distance. Sarah, the only one who had dared look at me earlier, took a small step forward, but then stopped, guilt flashing across her face before she retreated back into the group. Patricia, meanwhile, was in full damage control mode. She clutched her pearls, straightening her spine, and began hissing at guests who lingered too long. "There's nothing to see here. Go back inside, the reception is still happening." But no one listened. Everyone knew the show was over. Ryan walked past Emily, his face set like stone. He didn't even glance back as he headed toward the exit, his groomsmen trailing after him with uneasy looks. The sight of the groom abandoning the wedding, it was like watching a movie. People would be talking about this for years. And then, all eyes landed on me. The woman who didn't belong. The woman who had just brought the entire wedding crashing down with a single truth. For the first time, I didn't feel embarrassed or small. I stood tall, letting their stares wash over me. If they thought I'd shrink away, they were wrong. Because this wasn't just the end of Emily's wedding. It was the beginning of me taking back everything she'd stolen, and more. As the crowd began to thin, the whispers trailing out with them, I stayed exactly where I was. My heart was steady now, no nerves, no guilt. Just clarity. Emily was still kneeling on the floor, her perfect white dress smeared with mascara and dotted with crushed petals. She looked small, broken, but I didn't pity her. Not anymore. Slowly, I walked toward her. The bridesmaids parted without a word, their silence saying more than loyalty ever could. Patricia tried to step in, but one look from me, calm, unflinching, was enough to stop her in her tracks. Emily lifted her head, eyes red, tears streaking down her face. "Claire, please, don't do this. Don't humiliate me more than I already have been." I crouched down just enough so my words would land directly in her ear, though everyone close by could still hear them. "Humiliation? Emily, this isn't humiliation. This is truth. Humiliation is what you did to me. Cutting me out, using me, pretending like I didn't matter the second you got what you wanted." She shook her head frantically. "I didn't mean to." "Yes, you did," I cut her off sharply. "You've always meant to. Every time you needed me, I was there. But the second I needed even a sliver of loyalty from you, you vanished. You don't know what friendship is, Emily. You only know what you can take." Her mouth quivered, but no defense came. The truth was too heavy now, crushing her into silence. I stood, straightening my back, my voice clear enough for everyone left to hear. "You told me I didn't belong here. But the truth is, this entire day only existed because of me. And now? You don't just lose me. You've lost Ryan, your image, and every ounce of respect in this room." Gasps rippled through the stragglers, but no one disagreed. For once, the room wasn't orbiting Emily, it was orbiting me. And it felt damn good. The silence that followed my words hung thick in the air. Emily was crumpled on the floor, her dress ruined, her voice gone. Most of the guests had scattered, but a few lingered at the edges, their faces lit with that guilty fascination people get when they're watching a train wreck they can't look away from. That was when Patricia struck. She stepped forward, her heels clicking sharply against the marble, her face twisted in fury. "How dare you," she spat, pointing a manicured finger at me. "You come into my daughter's wedding, making a scene, destroying her happiness, humiliating her in front of everyone she loves. You've ruined everything." Her voice cracked with rage, and for a moment, I saw it, the real Patricia, not the polished, society-perfect facade. She wasn't fighting for Emily. She was fighting to preserve the image of her family, the fantasy they'd built for themselves. I turned to her slowly, my expression calm. No, Patricia. I didn't ruin this wedding. Emily did. All I did was tell the truth. She scoffed, shaking her head violently. The truth? You could have waited until after today. But no, you had to make it about you. I let out a short laugh, sharp as glass. About me? You told me I didn't belong here. In a venue I paid for. Your daughter used me, lied to everyone, and pretended like I was nothing. You don't get to play the victim now. The guests who remained nodded subtly, their expressions confirming whose side they were on. Patricia's face flushed a deep, angry red as she realized she was losing them too. I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only she could hear. You raised a daughter who treats people like tools. That's on you. And today, the world finally saw it. Her eyes widened, her lips parting like she wanted to strike back, but nothing came. For once, Patricia was speechless. And it was glorious. When Patricia fell silent, it felt like the final nail had been hammered into the coffin of Emily's perfect day. I didn't need to say anything more. The truth was already carved into the room, undeniable and permanent. So I turned on my heel and began walking away. My heels clicked across the marble floor, steady, strong, each step a quiet reminder that I wasn't the broken one here. Behind me, Emily's muffled sobs echoed, but I didn't look back. The strangest thing happened then. Instead of avoiding me like I'd half expected, guests began approaching me. Some hesitated, as if unsure whether it was appropriate to speak, but their curiosity outweighed their manners. A middle-aged woman in a navy dress touched my arm lightly. You know, you did the right thing. She needed to hear it. Another man, one of Ryan's uncles I think, gave me a short nod. Took guts to stand up like that. Most people wouldn't have. Even Sarah, the bridesmaid who had avoided my eyes earlier, finally stepped forward. She looked uncomfortable, fiddling with the hem of her dress, but her voice was soft. I'm sorry, Claire. I knew about the money. We all did. Emily said you didn't care, Anne. I shouldn't have believed her. None of us should have. I studied her for a moment, then gave a small nod. At least you admit it. That's more than she ever did. One by one, people made their way toward the exit, their faces full of judgment, but not for me. For once, I wasn't the one being scrutinized, whispered about, pitted. That weight had shifted entirely onto Emily, and I let it stay there. By the time I reached the doors, the vineyard staff had started clearing champagne glasses and gathering abandoned bouquets, as if erasing any trace of the wedding that never was. And me? For the first time in months, I felt like I was walking into freedom. The morning after the wedding that never was, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. At first, I thought it was just sympathy texts from mutual friends, but when I finally opened social media, I understood. The story had spread like wildfire. Guests had posted cryptic statuses the night before, never seen a wedding implode like that, but by morning, the details were out. Someone had leaked a video. A shaky phone recording of me standing tall in the lobby, telling Emily she had used me, while Ryan demanded the truth. It had already racked up thousands of views. The comments section was brutal. $26,000 from her best friend? And she didn't even make her a bridesmaid? Good for Claire. Someone had to put that spoiled girl in her place. Imagine losing your fiancé and your dignity in one night. Emily was trending locally, and not in a flattering way. By mid-afternoon, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. Ryan, can we talk? I owe you an apology. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it, after all, this wasn't my mess anymore, but curiosity won. I agreed to meet him for coffee later that week. When I saw him, he looked different. Not broken exactly, but like someone who had walked away from a fire and was still smelling the smoke. He didn't waste time. "Claire," he said, his voice steady, "I'm sorry. You didn't deserve what happened. Not from Emily, not from her family, and sure as hell not from me believing her lies. You saved me from marrying someone I didn't really know." There was sincerity in his voice, the kind that couldn't be faked. For once, I believed him. I didn't need revenge against Ryan. He wasn't the enemy. But hearing him admit the truth, seeing him own up to it, it was a victory I hadn't expected. And as for Emily? Her downfall was only just beginning. The weeks after the wedding felt almost surreal. Everywhere I went, people seemed to know the story. At the grocery store, a cashier gave me a little nod and whispered, "Good for you." At work, co-workers who had barely spoken to me before suddenly wanted to hear the whole thing. Emily, on the other hand, disappeared from social media entirely. Her once carefully curated feed of brunches, vacations, and #bridelife posts went silent. Word got around fast, Ryan had officially called off the engagement and moved out of the condo they had leased together. Rumors swirled that he had even demanded the ring back. And Emily? She tried to spin it, of course. She told mutual friends that I had overreacted, that she'd planned to pay me back all along. But no one bought it anymore. The video had been too clear, her excuses too flimsy. People she used to command with ease now rolled their eyes at the mention of her name. As for Patricia, she avoided me entirely. I heard through the grapevine that she was furious, not at Emily, but at me, for ruining her family's reputation. The irony was almost too rich. She hadn't cared about my savings, my loyalty, or my place in Emily's life. All she cared about was appearances. And now those appearances were in shambles. One quiet evening, I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine and thought about it all. For years, I'd been Emily's safety net, the friend who gave and gave without asking for much in return. Losing her should have hurt more than it did. But instead, I felt free. Because revenge hadn't just been about exposing her. It had been about reclaiming my worth, reminding myself that I wasn't disposable, that my loyalty wasn't something to be exploited. And in the end, Emily lost everything she thought she owned, her fiancé, her reputation, her image. But me? I walked away with something far more valuable. Peace. And the knowledge that I would never again let anyone tell me I didn't belong.